California Governor Gavin Newsom is ramping up the police presence around highly trafficked shopping malls after a series of widespread robberies at high-end stores throughout the San Francisco Bay Area. The weekend robberies started in San Francisco on Friday evening when groups broke into stores such as Louis Vuitton, Blueberry, and Bloomingdale's in the downtown area and in Union Square, a higher-end shopping district popular with tourists that was teeming with holiday shoppers. I've seen the videos from some of these, and they're nuts, just like person after person after person running into these stores. Not good.
Right, and I'm sure we can roll some of those throughout this segment. But yes, and I've seen a lot of people and a lot of people in the media describing this as looting, which kind of has connotations of the protest movement. But these are robberies.
Yeah, so there was a big fight over this, and I think it's because the headline, there was a local news story, and the way the headline was like maximally written to confuse and annoy people because it was experts caution against use of the term looters to describe these things, which sounded like, if you just read that, it sounded like a bunch of kind of liberal social justice professors.
Be nice to these people and look for the root causes.
Right. What about the structural racism?
Why they're smashing and grabbing Louis Vuitton.
Yeah, when really what they meant is, by even the legal definition of looting, is that it's occurring during a official state of unrest or protest or something. Right. Whereas these were very, very actually organized, look like organized, right? Like planned, not during a state of unrest, which is like, not organized crime is probably also the wrong term, but
right.
Planned
organized robbery. Go with that. And actually, let's have some fun talking about root causes, because I think you jumped ahead of them over there. So we have seen inequality explode since the 1970s. In the 80s and 90s, it started to get a lot worse, and then 2000s to the point now where there are different worlds that people live in. I mean, there have always been rich people, but the inequality that we live with today is like nothing we've ever had in American history. And so, even in the Gilded Age, you had a handful of extremely wealthy oligarchs, Carnegie, Rockefellers, but you didn't have this gated off situation. I mean, and Piketty in his book Capital in the 21st Century goes through this, that yes, there was significant inequality. It was smashed significantly by World War I and then again by World War II, but it was never at the rate it is now. And so I think one question would be, how long did people think that this could go before you started seeing organized gangs of people just smashing their way through Burberry shops and Louis Vuittons? Because this is new, but so are the social conditions in which it's happening.
Right. I mean, the right will say that this is, and I'm not saying I agree with this necessarily, because I do support policing reform, criminal justice reform, but the right would probably say, well, this is what comes from stigmatizing cops or, encouraging cops to do less policing. This has emboldened crime and criminal. And we have seen, depending on how you measure, we've seen upticks in some crimes. Not across the board.
Right. Homicides up, but other violent crimes down.
Right.
Some robberies, robbery generally down, but some of that could be that you had more stores closed. Although you could still rob a closed store. You can smash your way through there. I don't know. I mean, if you think about this like a bank robbery, like we've had bank robberies throughout American history. So it's not as if that's completely dependent on there being less policing. Maybe there is some link there that they feel like they can get away with this, but I do think that if people don't factor wealth inequality and income inequality into their examination of this trend, I think they're missing a part of it.
I'm concerned that, well, I don't disagree with that. I'm concerned that the perception that crime is increasing or that it's getting scarier out there will actually make law and order kind of Policies that I don't think are necessarily well advised much more appealing and much more popular. There's going to be so I mean, this is when some people on the left, I think, we're making kind of light of this, or I'm like, who cares if Louis Vuitton gets robbed? You know, it's the rich, whatever.
Right.
But there are massive downstream effects of just like having a society where stores are openly robbed this brazenly. If that becomes more normal, people become reasonably fearful, rationally fearful, and you get a blowback to this that will end up empowering a lot of policies that I don't actually want to see, that many liberals don't want to see, many moderate people don't want to see, and that's, I think that's a huge concern that you risk missing if you're just like, well, who cares if the rich store gets robbed? Right.
You know, I think that's right. It's, you know, if you think that income and wealth inequality are a problem, then the answer's got to be taxation. Mm-hmm. They couldn't even do that through the Build Back Better. Now, I'm not saying that these are some Robin Hoods. These are opportunistic people who, you know, believe that, you know, that this kind of smash and grab is something they can get away with, and also, like, it's now so much easier to sell this kind of thing than it used to be. So I think that might play into it because of the internet. You can just before if you had to fence stolen goods, you were lucky to get 5% of the retail value of it. Now you can recoup a significant amount of it. So it's like grabbing cash, which is what made banks more attractive to rob in the past than stores like this. But yeah, I mean, it's. And I think, and also companies are going to start using this to do things that they might otherwise be doing. Like some drugstores closed in San Francisco. Some of them were planning to close anyway, but they kind of suggested that, well, it's because there have been all of this shoplifting and robberies that we're closing these locations.
Yeah, and you're gonna create. There's ways in which this could create more of a two-tiered society as places like these places that get robbed start to rely more on private security. I remember following in the summer of 2 summers ago, summer of unrest, when the racial justice protesters were marching through the streets of D.C. Some of them smashing every window in sight. And then they came to, I think it was McDonald's had what looked to me like had a security force that was had spikes coming, and they looked like they were wearing suits of armor. And that building did not get messed with. The police weren't doing anything. The police were following at a healthy distance, mostly not doing anything. They stopped one person when they got a little too violent. It was actually, I found it hilarious when then they talked about January 6th. Why didn't the police do more? Like, they were so aggressive during the BLM stuff. Like in DC, I saw a lot of continuity of behavior. I saw a lot of the police not really doing anything, and then occasionally overreacting in some extreme way, and then not doing anything. This is not a good way to approach a lot of these problems. It will create more inequality of how the wealthy live and how the society is organized for them if they're like, well, we can't even rely on the public services, so we'll rely on other services.
Right. It creates a cycle that all goes the wrong direction, down the drain.
Right. But we'll have more Rising after this. Stay tuned.